Hello, and a really big warm welcome to this presentation from the Urban Penguin. My name is Andrew Mallett, and in this video we're going to take a look at not monitoring our heart rate, but monitoring our servers, making sure that our servers are in the state they should be with Nagios. Now, certainly if you've got one server, you can probably monitor it manually, but what if you've got 5, 10, 50 or 100? So here we are on my glorious Rocky Linux 8.10 system. As always, we can start off using hostname CTL, so we can identify that we are in fact using Rocky Linux 8.10 and we're virtualized within VMware. I'm running this in VMware Fusion. So we want to go through and start monitoring our estate, and we can do that using Nagios. And we're going to look at installing Nagios and looking at the default configuration that will allow it to monitor its own local host. So to begin, we need to make sure that we install the required packages. So we're going to be putting on HTTPD, the Apache web server, and Nagios. Now, of course, we can allow this to chug away, grabbing its glorious bytes from the various repositories. Just checking the metadata at the moment, and you can see as it goes through to each of the repositories, it can pull down the latest metadata if required, and then it will be able to start the install. But all of this is very interesting, but probably not worth watching, so we can jump through to the end of the install. It can be good to actually check what has been installed. So we wanted HTTPD and Nagios, but of course it's installed Nagios, it's installed the plugins, it's installed our web servers and the required modules, but it's also put in PHP if we take a look. So we can gain some understanding that Nagios is going to be based around PHP. Now, with everything installed and ready to go, the next step is going to set the Nagios admin, the web password for our administrator. Now, there's no point me just setting it and saying this is the way that it is set. You need to understand how we determine which password file we need to go to and which user account we need to use. So I'm going to take a look inside of the Apache configuration, looking inside of our httpd conf.d directory and the nagios.conf. This obviously describes the Nagios virtual server. And as we go down, the main thing I'm going to be looking at is the auth user file. And we can see this is etc, Nagios and passwd. So this tells me the password file that I should be writing to, but it won't tell me the user account that it should be using. Here we're just looking at require valid user. The configuration of who is allowed to manage the system is inside of a CGI file, so I can go through and take a look at etc, and this time we're going into Nagios, the Nagios configuration, and looking at cgi.cfg. Inside of the cgi.cfg file, we can page down. I've opened it up in less, but we should be able to see who is the authorized user for various tasks. Now, looking towards the bottom of the screen now, we can see our authorized for system information, authorized for configuration, and it's all Nagios admin. So we now know the user account Nagios admin and the password file to create the user in. So we can use then the ht-passwd -c to create the file. This will overwrite the file if it exists, and then /etc nagios / and passwd. So we took that from our Nagios Apache configuration, and the Nagios admin we got out of the Nagios cgi.cfg file. We're creating the account, so we add the password twice, and now we can double check that it is Nagios admin, and we've now set up the password in the correct file. I'm going to go through now and enable and start my services. So using systemctl, we can enable our services so they will start on boot, -- now, just to ensure that they are actually started now. And of course, we can do it for HTTPD and Nagios. Obviously, the advantage of using systemd is that we're able to specify the operation for 2 services in one go, as well as being able to run the enabling of the service and the starting of the service with the one command, systemctl. Remember those days when we used to have to use the check config and the service command? So yeah, I'm a big fan of systemd. Anything that makes my life just a little bit more easy is going to be good for me, and hopefully you're enjoying this too. So this then is just waiting for them to start, and obviously they have now started up. I haven't changed anything as far as SE Linux is concerned, so we are running in enforcing. I'm going to check the IP address of my system so I know where to point my browser. I'll be accessing from my host system. But of course, I will need to open up the firewall too. So if I go through and use my firewall and CMD, and we can go through and add a service and HTTP. I'm just going to be using HTTP to access it. In, I suppose, a full-on environment, you would be setting HTTPS. So that's set the runtime configuration for the default zone. It'll be enough for us, but we might also consider a persistent connection. When I go through to the website, you can see that I'm getting my default welcome page, but changing the URL to Nagios, I can then authenticate. So Nagios admin and the password that I set. And again, I'm not going to worry about saving the settings. But yeah, welcome to Nagios. We seem to be up and running with Nagios 4.4.9. We can go through to our hosts, and we can see that we've got one host, but one of those hosts has got a warning. Moving down to our services, we can see that the warning is on HTTP. And when we look at that, the status information is saying that we're getting a forbidden. Well, this might seem strange because we're already seeing that we can access the website and we didn't see the forbidden. But there's a little bit of hidden information that goes on with your website. When I go through and curl localhost, yes, I'm delivered the default web page, but that's because the real web page doesn't exist. So if I do a curl -i on the local host, I can see the header information being returned, and this is where we're picking up forbidden. We're forbidden to list the directory contents because there is no index page, so we fall over to the default page. So let's just quickly create a web page. It's not going to be particularly glorious, just the word hello. And we can then add it to var www.html and then the index.html page. So this is just going to suppress the error because obviously we won't get forbidden anymore. And when we look now, we can see that we are getting a correct 200 status code coming back. So it's good to be able to look at the inside, the mechanics of what's happening. We might think the website is working, but that is not entirely the case. Now, returning to Nagios, we can see that the warning was last issued at 0650. Well, these run a check every 5 minutes. When I look at my timings, it should be running any moment. I'm getting towards 55 at the moment, so we should be able to see it change over. And as we do, we can see there that it's now gone green and everything is okay. So these are the default 8 services that we monitor: our load, users, the website, checking availability with ping, our root partition space, checking availability over SSH, our swap usage, and our total number of processes. So now it's just a simple matter to summarize what we've looked at. So first of all, we must make sure that we have Nagios and HTTPD installed on our Rocky Linux 8.10 system. Next up, we can go through and set our Nagios admin web password. We need to enable within our firewall, HTTP. I didn't do this in the demonstration because it's a short demonstration, but setting it from the command line, we are setting it in memory. So we can then flush our in-memory or runtime settings through to the permanent settings. If we're not really using Apache, we do need to make sure that we have a welcome page to keep the monitoring of the website happy. And then we can enable both Nagios and our Apache web server.
All that is left to say is thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this, then you are probably sadder than I first thought. For more of this drivel, please subscribe, like and comment to @TheUrbanPenguin.